Hello.
And welcome.
It's the Graveyard Girls. Welcome to our witch trial season.
Yes.
So this is the German ones I am on today.
Yes, so this is one of your individual cases.
One of my individual and the most documented one I have ever come across ever. But I have not included everything because that would be about 20 pages.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to look it up, look for the German witch trials and you can see what these people died of, how they died, and how many people died that day.
I know I haven't done too much research specifically into the Germans, but all I do know is from my research theories that it frequently reference how big the Germans were. So I know it's a mammoth one.
Yes. Just
but
a tad.
I don't know any specifics of the Germans.
Good. Because I did all the German research.
Yes.
There's so much of this that is just, it was impossible to get anything down. Like I said, you could see that Adolf died next to his wife and she was murdered, but they were burnt alive or they were beheaded or they were... Yeah,
So in comparison to the others, it went into much more detail in terms of record keeping. It was much better kept.
Like I'm saying, it was ridiculous. Like I was gonna write it all down, but then I was like, oh, that would be too overwhelming, too much information. Yeah. It's like you're not gonna remember anything else. You just remember that, like, they would say this many people died this day. Their names were this, and this, and they honestly, it was the most documented one I have ever come across. Okay. So Germany had 4 large witch trials, which consisted of the Trier witch trials, the Fulda trials, the Wurzburg, and the Bamberg witch trials. The Trier trials took place in present-day Germany between 1581 and 1593. And these were perhaps the largest documented witch trial in history in view of executions.
Right, okay.
So that's what I was on about with the most documented.
Yeah.
So every day, like 15 people died, or this many people died, they were burnt alive or whatever.
Okay, so it listed the full details.
Yes. So in 1581, Johann von Schoenberg, Schlong? That's what I was thinking, Schlong. Schoenberg was appointed Archbishop of Trier. He greatly admired the order of the Jesuits, which he was apparently, quote, wonderfully addicted. Oh. So he's a religious, what is it? Oh, I can't...
Clergy.
I was going to say, like, sycophant.
Oh, right, okay.
He's very, like, obsessed with them.
Yes.
And their way. So he ordered the purging of 3 groups in society. First, he rooted out the Protestants, then the Jews, and then the witches. And it's very...
It's given me a little bit Adolf Hitler sort of...
Yes. Well, we are in Germany.
Well, maybe that's where he got his ideas from.
He was the one responsible for the massacre of Trier, which, because of his initiative, support, and patronage, became, quote, of an importance quite unique in the history of witchcraft, end quote. So he is obviously the Adolf Hitler of witchcraft, you could you could argue. So between 1587 and 1593, 368 people were burnt alive for sorcery in 22 villages. And in 1588, 2 villages were left with only 1 female inhabitant in each, because that's how prominent and yes.
How are they planning on repopulating Germany after this?
This is the issue. This is why
there's so many. Oh no, it's not going to be
a
blonde-haired, blue-eye thing, is it?
That didn't come across. Okay. But that's the thing that I was thinking of, because how can you just leave 1 woman in each village? It's just,
And also, depending on which men are left, it could be very ancestral.
108 victims were men, women, and children of nobility, and also people with positions in the government and administration. One of the victims was Dietrich Flade, who was was rector of the university and chief judge, who was in opposition to the persecutions.
Right, okay.
So I think this is what brings him in, because he's obviously against it. He doubted the use of torture and consequently was arrested, tortured, strangled, and burnt, which made the witch trials worse, as it effectively put a stop to all opposition to the persecutions. So
basically, you're not going against them because you'll end up deaded.
Exactly. The mass executions caused the population to shrink, and because of this, the executioner prospered economically, described as riding about on a fine horse, which, quote, like a nobleman of court dressed in silver and gold, while his wife vied with noble women in dress and luxury, end quote. So people are starting to think that he himself is just doing it so he could profit off the death of this. The Trier witch trials, due to their colossal size, attracted a lot of attention in contemporary Europe. News pamphlets were published about it as far as Denmark, where they revived the interest in witch trials there and influenced the Copenhagen trials, in which
I was going to say, I think I did recognise the name of this.
Yes, in which turn were all connected to the North Berwick trials. So the German, Copenhagen, Scottish ones.
It's a knock-on effect.
It is, yeah. I
know there's a lot of the French where they make reference to the German as well.
I'm not surprised. I think also at this time the borders are a bit more iffy, or they're not there.
Yeah, a lot of the countries, I know we've said this in a previous episode, what are countries now and not what countries were then. So there's lots of parts of like France and Spain that weren't France and Spain then, and the same with like Germany. The borders were very different, but also like now we have border security. That wasn't really a thing then, and people could there was almost like passages between them all that was almost a bit like a no man's land or a free man's land, if you like.
Depends on who you ask. Oh, this is this, or this is this.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the thing, especially in terms of the witch trials and hysteria spreading, it happened in a lot of it in those places because there's people travelling from so many different places that they exchange stories in these parts.
Yeah.
And then it blends, and a lot of these areas are multi-like speaking, so they've got several different languages in them. They're quite multicultural, if you like.
Yeah, they are. I think that's probably a good thing, but then like look how easy
misinformation is spread.
Exactly, because like this affected most of Western Europe, which is terrible.
And they're obviously almost like leaders, if you like.
Yes. And also during this time it's like Holy Roman Empire, so it's like you've got the Italians and
yeah, it was very strange. It did make it very complex. I know when I was looking for stuff, because I was like, is this like French now, or like, was it like France back then?
Because my mail-in case, she was either Swedish or Finnish, and I think I classed her as Swedish.
Yeah,
but it's modern day Finland, I think. I think that's how I worded it. So the Fulda, I think that's how it's pronounced. The Fulda witch trials took place in 1603 to 1606. The trials were ordered by Prince Abbot Balthasar von Dernbach, who had been exiled by the Lutherans in 1576 after his counter-Reformation policies. He returned to power in 1602, and then he resumed the counter-Reformation and announced an investigation of witches and other undesirables, whichever they are.
Little sidetrack, but I guess kind of relevant. Did Germany have a king at that point? Because I can't remember. It's not like all the countries had kings and queens.
I know. This is when I was like, well, what's a Prince Abbot? And I was just like...
So he's some sort of royalty or part of a court?
Yes, I think this is where it gets confusing, because it's like the Holy Roman Empire. The Pope is in charge, or whoever's in charge of the empire is in charge. So I think there is some nobility and princes, but I don't think there's a king.
Yeah, but quite an important one.
Yes, but I don't think there's a king. But there are princes, but they're called Prince Abbot.
Okay, because abbots are from the church, aren't they? So so it's like a religious prince. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I was just like, what is like? He's a prince and an abbot, or his name is Prince Abbot?
No, I think they're seen as like religious princes, aren't they? So they're like effectively leaders, if you like.
Yeah. So he obviously was in power originally, and he was trying to get rid of the witches initially, and then someone else came in and then was like, no, we don't like this. And then he came back in and he was like, I'm getting rid of witches again, and the quote undesirables. So the witchcraft persecutions were presided over by Balthasar Nuss, and investigations began in March 1603, shortly after Shortly thereafter, arrests began in the city. The exact number of victims is not known, but they are known to have been at least over 200.
Oof.
The accusers of Nus accused him of having accused 239 people. He admitted to 205.
Right. Okay.
And I couldn't find exactly how many were executed, but I'm not sure how they was executed, but I'm assuming by burning on the stake. The witch hunts stopped soon after the Prince Abbot died on March 15th, 1605. Nuss was arrested and remained in custody for 13 years, and then he was beheaded in 1618.
Right, okay.
This is happening because the Holy Roman Empire come in, because they're like, they don't like
how it's being run.
No. So that's like over 200 people at least. The Wurzburg trials of 1625 to 1631 took place in the self-governing Catholic area that was run by the Catholic Prince Bishopric of Wurzburg in the Holy Roman Empire, which is present-day Germany.
Okay.
This is one of the biggest mass trials and mass executions ever seen in Europe, and one of the biggest witch trials in history. The first persecutions in Wurzburg started with the consent of the Prince Bishop, who I can't say his name, so I just wrote can't say his name. So Prince Bishop of Wurzburg, and it reached its climax during the reign of his nephew and successor, Philip Adolf von Ehrenberg. Many of the witch trials of the 1620s multiplied with the Catholic reconquest. In some areas, the lord or bishop was the instigator. In others, it was the Jesuits.
Okay.
Sometimes local witch committees were set up to further the work. During his 8-year reign, Philip Adolf von Ehrenberg was very active, and he burnt 900 people, including his own nephew.
Bloody hell.
19 Catholic priests.
Yeah, in that one about his nephew, could he have also been a part of that? It wasn't anything to do with witchcraft, but he saw him as a threat to his
I think so.
title and power.
I think so. I think
It's a nice, tidy way to bump him off.
I think that's what most of these are. I think because it's run by Catholics, and they're like, oh, we're getting rid of the Protestants. They're sounding like prostitutes.
I mean, I think they got rid of a few of them as well.
And the quote undesirables. I think, you're right. It's him basically just getting rid of threats, and I think that's what the other one from the trial.
Yeah, I think it's one. Then they throw in a couple of ordinary folk to sort of make it seem like it's not a targeted sort of thing.
So yes, he burnt his nephew. 19 Catholic priests and children of 7 who were said to have had intercourse with demons. Now that is not intercourse. That would be rape.
Yes.
And how?
Or is he supposing they're talking about having intercourse like with the devil, as in like, you know, like when they talk about witches at the Sabbath?
Yeah.
Kissing the devil's bottom.
To seal the pact, you have to kiss him on the bottom.
On the derriere.
Yeah, because like they're children of the age of 7. How are they going to know? Well, I guess they're probably married by the age of 8, so they might know what intercourse.
Especially if they're a girl, I'm going to say she was had her first child by about 9.
But yeah, so he's not a very nice man. Obviously, probably getting rid of his nephew for a threat, like you said.
He's a bit of an extremist by all accounts, I think.
Yes. So these are the trials that led into France.
Right, okay.
Oh yeah, these are the ones where there's far too many documented deaths. Okay. So these are the ones I think everyone who's listening should go research these, because you can see like the first name and last name of the people who have been murdered. So
it's almost like an online memorial sort of thing, if you like.
Yeah.
It'd almost be like, it's not the same, but you know, like when you went to France, you know, like the war memorials, like, you know, like Menengate and that sort of thing. It's just lists of a ridiculous amount of names of people that died.
That's what it was. And I was like, do I just name some of them? But then I'm like, well, then I'm going to leave some people out. So then do I not write any and then just tell you to go look for yourself, because there is way too many.
I was going to say, if I can, when I try and make the Instagram post, I might try and do a screenshot of some of the lists and include that in the Instagram post.
Okay, it's a long list.
Okay. So I'll have a little nosy.
So yeah, I would highly recommend looking into that, because these, like I said, they are the most documented ones I've ever come across.
Okay.
The ongoing mass process in Wurzburg attracted considerable attention. The witch commissions accepted names of all supposed accomplices given by people undergoing torture. So this led to the arrest of people with influential relatives and connections to the upper class. Therefore, complaints against the Prince Bishop and his witch trials were brought to his superiors and all the way to the Pope himself.
Right, okay.
Of course. And obviously...
but it waits till it reaches the wealthy.
Yep. So, all the way to the Pope himself and the Holy Roman Emperor. In 1630, a public condemnation against the persecutions were issued by the Emperor. And on the 16th of July, 1631, the Prince Bishop Philip Adolf von Ehrenberg died. And I'm not sure how he died. I'm assuming it was by natural causes.
Okay.
That same year, the city was occupied by the Swedish army under King Gustavus Adolphus, and this witch trial was finally brought to an end because at this point the Swedish weren't having any of their own trials. So the trials start to begin to phase out because the emperor isn't being notified of it. And he likes them, he just doesn't like how the German are going about it.
Okay.
So the Bamberg witch trials of 1626 to 1631 were initiated by the Reformed Catholic and Counter-Reformation Catholic Prince Bishop Johann Georg Fuchs von Dormenheim. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I'm assuming it's a Fuchs.
Okay.
Fuchs.
Right, I'll be mature now. I'll behave.
The goal of this new Prince Bishop was to create a, quote, godly state and to make the population obedient, devout, and conformally Catholic. Which
so
is
they
all
want
the
a
same.
little herd of sheep.
Yes.
Basically what they want.
Basically, this is what all witch trials are.
Yeah. Getting everyone to conform to one way.
Yeah.
And that way only.
Mm-hmm. So the exact cause of the witch trials is not entirely clear due to incomplete documentation, but in May 1626, frost destroyed the harvest in the entire region. Citizens started to send petitions to authorities demanding to know why witches and wizards had caused the frost, and the Prince Bishop issued an investigation, which led to the arrest of a woman who confessed to using witchcraft to cause the frost.
Right.
So here we go.
She confessed under torture.
Which we all know is purely fact, and no one will ever admit to anything that is not true. It's so obviously it's always the same, but it's always the same.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
I do get how it happened. Like, it's not how it's in today. Like, you forget how free we are today.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that they were so one-minded. Like, even if people had other ideas, you didn't say them.
No, because
it literally was a death sentence.
Yeah, because that guy who was literally against it, and he was essentially equal to that guy. He was like, well, you're clearly a witch, so now you're going to die.
Well, it's in that Salem one where even the police officer, he was obviously doing it first. He was only making arrests on behalf, but he very quickly didn't like it. And the second he says, I'm not going to arrest anyone anymore, he wasn't saying he wasn't going to be a police officer or he didn't believe in the witch trials. He just said he didn't want to be responsible for arresting people. They then accused him of being a witch, all because he didn't want to accidentally send an innocent person
to jail or death. Which, is a good person.
So it's not terrible. Why are they against them?
And it's like...
They must be sinful.
Yeah, and also, why do you want everyone to conform? I just don't get it. Because
if it
you're
was
boring as fuck.
I'd kind of get it. You know, if we had, like, one king, like, amongst, like, the whole land, and you could say, like, he was some proper, like, absolute lunatic, then I'd get the whole one-track thing. Like, he's so at the top and everyone around him is, like, conforming to that. But for so many other countries, like, surely not all of these leaders thought the same thing.
No.
So why did they all allow it to happen? I know certain ones, depending on which countries you go to, like with the French one, he brought it to an end in the country. Like, it's that, but for it to get that bad in the first place, surely they were noticing what other countries were doing by the time it reached them.
But then it's like, do you join in with that hysteria or do you not? Because you're like, well, they're clearly they're clearly killing these people, therefore they have to know what something we don't know. And it's like, well, if they have witches, we're literally just miles away. We probably have our own.
The thing is, like, say, prior to these witch trials, there was witches and well-known witches, because people were allowed to be a witch.
I think it's the melting pot, because there's a mini ice age during this time. People are starving, nothing's growing, and then like who are you going to blame?
And like I said, it's almost like similar today, like now in terms of government, like when something goes wrong, they don't want to accept that it's their fault, so they blame it on something else.
It's the immigrants coming in, and it's like, no, sort it out yourself. Yeah. So it's always the same. It's always like, it starts the same and then it ends the same, because people of nobility or higher up are eventually accused because there's no one left. Like I said, there's literally one woman left in a village. Yeah.
And I don't get how.
Can you imagine being the only woman left in a village? You know, either your time's going to be up soon because you will be...
Also, she's going to get a hell of a lot of dick.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If it's consensual, that's fine. But I'm assuming most of it's not consensual. And then because she's going to turn that one down, or she's witch.
The only way in which being the only woman, it could work quite nicely for that village, is if you happen to be the village prostitute. Because you'd have a very nice, tidy income coming in now. Because, there's no one else to steal your clients.
If they are going to pay you.
Yeah, well, yeah, true.
We don't know that.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just...
always the same.
I don't get how, if there was this supposed so many witches, like, why there wasn't a problem before now.
I think, like I said, it's a melting pot. Everything, like, they want someone to blame. Nothing has ever gone wrong before, even though the thing has been gone. I don't know. They're just looking for someone to blame, and then it's just witches.
It's almost like the religion took a new hold. Yeah. It was more powerful than it had ever been, and almost like it got too powerful.
I think that's what it was. I think, look how many religions they have wiped out or attempted to wipe out, and it's like, oh, you have to conform to this, otherwise you're dead. And then why aren't you conforming? Is it because you're a witch?
It's like, I know there was other religions about at the time, but when you look at it, it was almost like there wasn't. It was just Protestants or Catholics, that was it. You don't ever, when you look at it in time, obviously there would have been other religions, but you don't hear of them.
No. But is that because we come from a Christian Catholic type of country?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I think so.
And I suppose it wasn't... I suppose it is a form of segregation, but even though everyone could freely travel, was it a case of other things, like Buddhism and Islam? Was it just wasn't prominent in European countries? Is that not where they travelled to? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think we travelled out.
To them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, is that why it didn't creep in? Is that also why they didn't seem to, back then, have mass witch trials? Because they were almost separate from us?
I think so.
They're probably a bit more sensible. Shall we go with that?
Yes. So the number of executions in the Bamberg witch trials are unknown, as only some were documented. Of the confirmed cases in 1622, 15 were executed, and in 1625, 85 people were. Okay. And in 1628, 137 people were executed, and 167 people were executed in 1629. And in 1630, 54 people were executed. The number wasn't recorded in 1631, but it was less than the previous year.
Right, okay.
So less than 54. All were burned. Similar to the Wurzburg trials, this too gained the attention of the Holy Roman Emperor. Yeah. A turning point was the case against Dorothea Flock, who came from a well-off merchant family. Her husband issued a complaint of her arrest to the emperor. In April 1630, the emperor called upon the prince bishop to defend himself against the accusations and to put an immediate stop to the case against Dorothea. The prince bishop defied him and continued. Dorothea was put to death on the 17th of May. So this caused outrage among the leadership of the Catholic Church in Germany, who held the prince bishop responsible. So, which is good.
Yeah.
But how dare he for going against the Prince Bishop? I mean, that's like, he was clearly so into it that he's like, oh, I don't care what you say.
It's like it's gone beyond. It's like even just gone beyond an obsession. He's one track mind.
It's madness, is what it is. So,
but
crazy.
he's almost unstoppable. It's like it doesn't matter. It's almost one of those like it didn't matter how much you tried to help or rehabilitate. You weren't stopping that.
Nope. So support among the population began to fade as people realized that everybody was at risk of being burnt alive. Peasant refused to supply wood for the burning, which surprised me because I was just like, oh yeah, because like you forget people.
Don't think about
you don't think about that. It's like, so they started a union themselves and like, no, we're not supplying the wood that we're going to be put to death on. But I was also at this point like, would there be any peasants left?
Probably not. One of each.
Yeah, well,
like an Adam and Eve.
You're like, no, thank you. I'm not.
In some weird fucked up way, were they trying to recreate an Adam and Eve?
Maybe. Yeah, because what do they consider undesirables? It's very Nazi Germany.
I think it's
the peasant people, but you still need.
They do, but did they want a select amount? Like what they maybe ones that were literate. And, like, were, if you like, the higher end of the peasants, if you like. Because I don't really think there was much of a middle class. It was just peasants and wealthy and then courts. Yeah. I don't think we had this sort of middle class thing that we've got now. I think, like I said, you were either, like, you're basically dead, you're a beggar, or you were classed as a peasant, but you might have been, I don't know, if you had a home, you were, even though you were a peasant and it was squalid conditions.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Either you had a home or you didn't. I don't.
Also, like, how much wood are they getting through? Because, Jesus. Yes, I mean, they'll be like, we're not going to supply any wood because there's no trees left.
Yeah, deforestation.
That happened in Iceland, not with the witch trials, but because they built so many boats, they essentially got rid of all the trees.
Oh, bloody hell.
So there's barely any trees on Iceland now. Oh. And obviously, it's a very windy place. They can't really grow. So, yes, that's a little fact. But yeah, I never thought of like the peasants supplying the wood.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why didn't they do this beforehand?
Because they've got to supply the fuel as well. Because I'm pretty certain they get fuel from, like pigs, like when they cut them up, a bit like the gluey, the petroleum sort of, the jelly bits of them, it adds to like fuel.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they use the jelly bits from the pigs, like the gelatin sort of thing. That's what they use to add like as fuel to fires.
It sounds lovely.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things they actually smother the people in, like the pig fat before they set it on fire. It's like an accelerant.
Yeah, I suppose.
So also they need the peasants to supply the pigs. So
yeah, they're like, no.
Although I think I want to be smothered in the accelerant just so I go up a bit quicker.
Get it over quicker.
Like smother me in that pig fat.
Also, would you smell like bacon?
Oh.
You're like,
I smell tasty.
Yeah, you're like, So you start eating yourself. So as the peasants went on strike, this caused pressure to the Prince Bishop, so he stopped the witch commissions from making new arrests. However, he kept those accused in prison, so he's not really learning anything.
Nope.
In July 1631, the emperor had Anton Winter appointed to become the new head of the witch commission in Bamberg. He was known for his opposition to the trials.
Okay.
The Prince Bishop fled the city to Austria. Anton Winter released all those accused of witchcraft from prison, so this brought the end to all the German witch trials.
Okay.
So, I think, bringing in someone who is against the trials was a good move.
Yes,
Seen as like, how on earth did he keep his position for like another month? Because he murdered Dorothea in May.
Yeah, I'm surprised they then didn't execute him. That's what
I was thinking. But like, he stayed another month, and then Anton Winter was brought in, and then suddenly everything's all good because you've got someone who doesn't believe in them.
Yeah, I'm surprised the church didn't bump him off a bit quicker.
I wanted them to do. When I saw that he escaped and went to Austria, I was like, for God's sake, that's probably why the Austrians had some.
Yeah, they did. But I don't know. It's so hard. Like I said, those ones. But I think in countries like that, one, yes, okay, it's a big country, but I think whoever their leader is just so extreme in comparison
I know.
to the
Like
others.
you said, he was like what was it? Wonderfully obsessed, or I can't remember what it was, but he was so obsessed with the Jesuits and their way.
I think
getting rid of
it's how good it is at charming the people that he meets. Because if initially he was very good at charming people, he can catch that on pretty quickly. It's not until it starts getting silly that people will be like, oh, hang on a minute, wait a minute. At first, like I said, if he's so good at charming people into thinking this is a thing, they are going along with it.
And all the batches, they're all like Prince Abbot or they're a Prince Bishop.
So they've probably been advised by him, haven't they? They're sat in the same court, effectively.
Yeah, they're all like, oh, well, he's doing this, let's do this.
Yeah. But no, I don't know.
But yeah, like I said, if you're interested, go look at how many the documents. There's so many.
And like I said, they did have a massive impact on all of the other European ones, because I know constantly when I was looking at like French and when I did the Danish
German,
ones, it just kept referring to the German and how it'd come across like this person knew this person. And yeah, it's a massive crossover. So in terms of Europe, I think Germany was the one that really
I think it's a bit scary.
Kicked it off.
Yeah, because it's kind of like history repeating itself. They're trying to
take over,
purify as well. Yeah, take over, purify the race, if you
and
want.
in a weird way, they achieved it.
Yeah.
Because look what they caused all the other countries to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like he did get to that point. It's just like luckily he was stopped eventually, but not before a massive amount of damage was done.
No, it's like.
But it is a bit weird about the whole one woman thing, because that is it is giving me a very Adam and Eve sort of vibe in terms of, especially from the church point of view.
I know, like,
but it's also very strange.
It's like, why just leave one woman? They're like, oh, that's too many.
But also, how did they select which woman it was going to be? Was it just by chance? She was just, once they got to the thing, we have to leave at least one woman, and it was just potluck? Or was she specifically selected, I wonder?
That didn't come up. I was just like, yeah, they're probably just like, oh, well, you're a witch. And then they're like, oh, well, there's only one left.
Because it would have been interesting to know if all of these single, like the women that happen to be, if they all happen to look quite similar to each other. Because then it would have been like it was some sort of ideology. So.
Well, yeah, because like they said they were wiping out the Jewish people, the witches, and what was the other one? The Protestants. I don't know.
So it's almost like they found a desirable woman that they wanted, and they effectively wanted to breed the rest of the men from that village from her to create a kind of stock.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
But that doesn't make sense. You need more women
than
one.
Oh, no, of course you do. But it's almost like they selected the one they wanted. Almost like maybe the one that they thought should have the most dominant features. I don't know.
But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, God. I feel sorry for those women.
Yeah. But then were they better off not being stuck in that sort of... It's hard. I'm not condoning the witch trials at all. And definitely what they did was murder. But then you also look at the conditions at the time. Was there a few instances... like if you were like proper like a beggar... Are they better off? Do you know what I mean? Would they just continue to live a life of poverty? I'm not saying that's a reason to kill them at all.
No.
It didn't justify their death.
No. I just like that the peasants were like, we are not supplying anything anymore.
Yeah. It's just like, but at first you recall with it. It's like, yeah, okay, woo. But then, like I said, that's how
they probably didn't realise. They probably didn't realise that they had a choice, and they're like, okay, this is what we have to do.
But in a way, they didn't have a choice because they were following leaders. Like I said, they're like a flock of sheep.
Yeah.
What one does, the next one does.
And if they don't supply, why aren't you supplying? Because you're a witch.
Yeah. And it's not until you get one that's really is strong enough. And I said until it's got to the point where it's over-destroyed things.
Yeah.
Like people are like, we're going to be left with nothing, so we're going to have to start rebelling now.
That's the thing. And like, it never occurred to me that the peasants are the ones it's like digging your own grave.
Yeah. Effectively, that's what it is.
I cannot believe the Prince Bishop went against the emperor.
No.
And then he fucked off. He's like, nah, never mind.
No. I said it was so extreme, I think.
Like at least over 1,000.
Because I think when you look at the others, they're all very superstition based.
Yes.
Whereas him was much more, it's come from him.
Yes, like I need to get rid of these people. They don't fit in with the thing. They're undesirable.
They're not what I want for my country. Yeah.
Well, go to an island and have yourself
it is.
on
I
your
think
country.
I said he's one of those, you got into power and it's gone to his head.
Yep.
I said
German trials for you.
It is indeed,
especially when there was an Adolf. I was like, oh, for God's sake.
I know you can't throw everyone under the bus that's got the name, but every time there's quite a lot of cases, and every time I see an Adolf, I was like, I know where this is going.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But no. Anyway, on that note,
don't name your children
Adolf.
So yes, thank you for listening.
Yeah. In the meantime,
keep creeping,
and we'll keep digging.